Others will ask, why don't we leave immediately? That answer is also clear. We must give Afghanistan the opportunity to stabilize. Otherwise, our gains could be lost, and al-Qaeda could establish itself once more. As Commander-in-Chief, I refuse to let that happen.
As President Obama in Afghanistan yesterday announcing the 10-year extension for the contract for Afghanistan, and Hamid Karzai getting a couple of $1 billion a year, apparently. Sarah Carter joins us now, national security correspondent for the Washington Examiner. Good morning, Sarah. Good to have you back on.
Good morning, Brian and Brian. Nice to be back on.
So what did we learn? Was there news made in this trip to Afghanistan yesterday?
You know, there wasn't really significant news made. I think that for the large part, we expected the president to extend, at least in words, and we don't have an exact number, troops in Afghanistan, particularly for training of Afghan security forces, as well as, the idea of going after al-Qaeda or not letting Afghanistan become a safe haven again. But one thing that we did learn was a Pentagon report that cited very limited gains had been buried by the president's arrival in Afghanistan. And I think that, the hope of the administration, of course, and the hope of America is that all of the losses that we've suffered and all of the gains that we've made in Afghanistan won't be lost forever once we leave. But this is going to be very tenuous, and this is a very, very difficult time for the administration because they want this strategic partner agreement to last long enough so that we can pull most of our troops out, so that we can say, okay, look, this was for something. We made this work. But we're not sure yet that that's going to be the case.
All right, so there is some important information in this agreement. It is an important agreement in some ways.
Correct.
But it seems like it was all rushed to final fruition just so that it could happen to occur, this trip to Afghanistan could happen to occur on the anniversary of the death of Osama bin Laden.
That's very true. I mean, for the president, this was a significant moment. I mean, this is an election year. This is the year, 1-year anniversary mark that Osama bin Laden was killed. And remember, in this strategic partnership agreement, it doesn't say how much money we're going to be giving them exactly every year until 2024. It does specifically say that it will have to go through Congress. It doesn't specifically state how many troops we're going to be leaving there for training purposes. But remember, what also wasn't talked about was the fact that under this agreement, the United States would lose its ability to attack its enemies from Afghanistan.
What do you read into that?
Well, this is very significant because it deals with Pakistan, and it deals with the safe havens in Pakistan. And if you look at the Pentagon report specifically states that the main reason we don't see significant gains is because the Haqqani network, which is a insurgency network fighting our troops in Afghanistan, as well as al-Qaeda, as well as foreign fighters, are still finding safe havens in Pakistan. So what happens to the troops that we leave behind? What happens to the troops that are there training these Afghan security forces if they can't defend themselves once these insurgents return back to Pakistan to their safe havens? And that's something that we have to take a very close look at.
Well, hold on a minute. The drone program, while it's controversial in some quarters, most people say it's pretty effective. It's been about the most effective tool we've had out there to fight terrorism. And we have negotiated away our ability to launch those drones from Afghanistan?
After 2014, yes, we have. And that has a lot to do with Pakistan and the deals that we're trying to cut with Pakistan. And Pakistan wants to open up those routes as long as we stop our drone program. Now, remember, we went ahead and fired the drones anyways several days ago, went after some of the Haqqani group. Pakistan kept very quiet about that. They didn't rattle those sabers as much as we thought they would. But they definitely said that if the United States continues the drone program, they're not going to open up the NATO supply routes, which we need to move our stuff out of Afghanistan in order to reduce the cost of leaving Afghanistan, which is going to cost us billions of dollars, somewhere near $10 billion just to get our stuff out of Afghanistan. So, this is a very tenuous situation. Pakistan doesn't want to see India's influence in Afghanistan any more than necessary, and they're going to help supply the Taliban and other Haqqani network group members with aid, as they have done in the past, and they were accused of by Admiral Mike Mullen last year after those attacks in Kabul. And so this is something that we're looking at. But remember that this strategic partnership agreement, all it does is say, okay, we're going to pull out, we're going to leave you in charge. But remember, Karzai's not going to be in charge for much longer, so we don't know who's going to be in charge. And the Pentagon report says that the Taliban's just waiting to get back, that they are capable of resurging in areas where we've cleared them. So we have no idea what Afghanistan's really going to look like in the next 2 to 3 years. We can only guess.
Okay, the way you've laid it out, and Richard Minitzer said the same thing earlier, I heard other people suggest that the deal on the table was that we weren't allowed to use Afghanistan as a launching point to attack another country, meaning the state itself, but that some people thought that still gave some leadway to use drones or to maybe even use special forces to go after organizations within the state, meaning you could go after Al-Qaeda or the Taliban if they're in Pakistan. But you don't believe that it's not that way, that they just were not allowed to use any type of launching point from Afghanistan to go into Afghanistan, no matter who we're going after?
As of now, the Pakistanis have been very clear that they do not want any drones launched at them. As of now, Karzai's been very clear that he doesn't want his country used as a launching point for drone strikes into any other nation. Okay. So if it's renegotiated in such a way, and it was slightly vague the way it was laid out. I mean, they didn't list every single insurgency group that they wouldn't go after with drones. Yeah. That can be renegotiated. But as of right now, I've spoken to Pakistani officials. I've spoken to officials in Afghanistan. As of now, the 2014 date signifies that we will not be able to launch drones into Pakistan, randomly to attack the Haqqani network or other insurgency networks. That could change in the future.
Sarah, the thing that I keep hearing you saying is that the details of this agreement are very vague in many ways, which sounds to be as if they wanted an agreement and have it timed so that they could tie it to the death of Osama bin Laden more than they wanted to get the right agreement done no matter how long it took.
In a lot of ways, that's what I'm hearing as well from my sources. And if you just look at the agreement itself, it is very vague. It is extraordinarily vague. It doesn't say how many troops are going to be left behind. It doesn't say how much money we're going to be supplying Afghanistan up until 2024. And at the 2014 mark, what happens then? So it doesn't commit to any specific troop levels or funding levels. And we know that. And that's one of the most important things. Now, we're going to be looking at NATO this month, the summit, and also some discussions among Afghanistan and U.S. Officials that are ongoing and continually ongoing. So we may get some more information out of that. But as of right now, there is no specific agreements as to those two major points.
But can't that be to our advantage, not to have a specific number of troops that we can keep there, or how much dollars?
And I think that's exactly it. I think what we're looking at is the administration saying, okay, look, we're going to wrap this up. We want to get out of there. So how do we do this without specifying anything and still leave it open so that there is a possibility that we can make things work? And this is what they did. They left it very vague. And we're also very reliant on our NATO partners. Remember, the United States has given more money than any other country on earth to Afghanistan. And what have we seen happen with a lot of our taxpayer dollars? It's been squandered through corruption and other malpractices in Afghanistan. So we want other people to pick up the tab too. We don't want this to rely solely on the United States. And I think we're waiting to hear from our NATO partners, hey, buddy, what are you going to commit to this war that you were a part of as well? So that's a big point. But also, at the same time, what we're looking at, and the Pentagon report was very clear in this, and it's so interesting because it was so watered down, too. But they said the Taliban is ready to resurge. They have made gains. And no matter what gains we've made, we know that they have the capability in the spring and the summer to bring themselves back. All right. And what happens to Afghanistan at 2014?
We're all out of time, Sarah.
War?
I'm sorry, we're all out of time, but really great stuff. We greatly appreciate you coming. Sarah Carter, of course, you can read her in the Washington Examiner. Always good reading over there. Thanks a lot for joining.